Well, I think I'll, yeah. Push the button. Got it. I think Old Man Winter is just finally letting go. It was 26 for a low yesterday, but 40 this morning. So I think Old Man Winter is letting go. Where are you, Kyle?
I'm out in eastern Iowa, right alongside
Hmm.
the Mississippi River.
Wow. Wrong side. Nice.
We have been hit by snow after 3 days in the 80s, at
Ah,
least in my part of Eastern Iowa. Kyle, I think you guys are in more in the snow shadow, aren't you?
No, we got nothing. It's just been rain.
Oh,
The
good.
snow's north of us. Honestly, it's not even far. It's just an hour north of us. They're gonna get hit with like 3 inches or so. But for us, it's just rain. Still hasn't even frosted yet.
Oh man, I wish we were out of it. We're only supposed to get trace, but it still is like I'm ready to get things growing, and I know I just gotta wait. I know that we are nowhere near the last frost date. Sarah, where are you now? You moved recently, right? With the
I
home
did.
buying situation?
I bought a house in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
How do you like it?
Um, it's kind of like it's not the best at anything, but it has a little bit of everything. Like it's a city, but it's not a giant city, and it's up in the mountains, and they're not like the most amazing mountains in the world, but it's like definitely like I live on a mountain, but on the north slope. So that's been really awesome. I just moved last weekend, so it's all pretty new. But we had a heat wave this week, and like I don't have AC yet, but thank God I didn't feel like I needed it at all. And then it thunderstormed yesterday and it was like cold afterwards. I was very happy.
The front changes this spring have been hilarious across the country. The degree of swing is as big as I've ever seen. It's like a lot of 40-degree, 50-degree swings nationwide.
Hmm.
But they say that this year is likely to be extreme with the shift between the La Nina El Nino, that it should be a
Hmm.
hot summer.
Hmm.
So we might as well get ready for the ride. Sarah, Kyle, you two have been in some proximity to each other before. Because Sarah, before she took this new job and had the move, she was helping me with research volunteering. And
Mhm.
Kyle has been helping me with community organizing. And he and I are actually both going to be together next weekend. For the 22nd, we're doing some tabling, and
Hmm.
AR is going to be able to table in Cedar Rapids at a big eco fest that usually gets 2 or 3 thousand people.
Oh,
And we're going
wow.
to table at a big event in Dubuque at the National Mississippi River Museum.
Hmm.
So it'll be a good opportunity to talk with more people on the ground. We did
That's
one
awesome.
hopeful about it. You know, this is the aquifer exhibit that we had beta tested, and this is going to be the largest rollout for it. I think that we have all the kinks worked out, and
Hmm.
people have by and large had really positive responses to learning about groundwater. We got more folks here. We got Desiree and we've got Pete Cravens.
Oh,
You folks want to introduce yourselves? Tell us where you are.
sure. Laura's outside right now, but we're in Austin, Texas. We're looking to move to a cooler place and
Hmm.
planning on moving this year, and we're still trying to find out where it should be.
That's a big challenge. I hope that some of the resources that we've been putting out there have been helpful. It seems like a good decision to make with some other people's perspectives involved too.
Yep, it has been so far. And plus, we're scheduled to talk next week.
Folks, well, I'll look to that. It's nice to be
Yeah,
able to
okay.
put a face to the name. Cool.
Yeah, yeah, good to see you. Okay, I'm gonna mute now.
All right.
I'm
Desiree,
Desiree.
what's your story?
Hi, I'm Desiree. My husband Jonathan's coming. He'll be right here. I'm chronic mess on YouTube, so I've talk to you a little bit. We actually just moved from Texas, from Austin, Pflugerville, to be precise. Yeah, I'm from Austin, and we moved last May and ended up in Michigan. We had been following the Emily's channel for a while to figure it out, among other resources, and several things. We headed northeast and ended up in Michigan, and that's where we are right now, Kalamazoo. So yeah, we should definitely talk about your journey. You're going to be kind of doing what we just did. It's a lot.
How do you like Michigan?
I love it. It's beautiful. The cool summers, amazing. The people here remind me a lot of Austin, like, because we moved to the Kalamazoo area, so it's small. It's a small town. It's not a big city. So that would be one struggle for, there are jobs, but it's very, it just reminds me of Austin. It has a lot of a old Austin vibe, like Austin was in the 1990s.
I've heard people say that about the Great Lakes region. Like
In
people I
general.
know in Colorado have told me that too, that the Great Lakes reminds them of like what Colorado was like before it got gentrified and popular.
There's also environments. So looking at something that's more urban.
Could you get a little closer to the mic? Because I can hear you're
Sorry about
saying
that.
something, but I can't hear you.
Sorry. It's got a really nice diversity of urban, suburban, and rural regions. It's got some really nice larger cities. It's got really nice suburban areas. It's got really nice rural areas. But also another thing that makes Michigan really weird, I think, kind of unique among states, is the Upper Peninsula, and how that area is largely kind of separate and becomes its own kind of unique, kind of hyper rural state. Lots of wilderness, and even people in the Lower Peninsula, kind of think of them as separate people. And so you have to be kind of special if you're going to go up there and willing to live in a kind of environmentally harsh area, or at least what people think of as environmentally harsh right now, and have a lot of kind of independence and willingness to kind of rough it on your own. There's also a lot of, I mean, if you're talking about price of real estate, there are a lot of great opportunities in Michigan.
I want to say
I think
about
real
the-
estate prices are so important to bring into any of these conversations.
Yeah. About the independence in the Upper Peninsula, I've actually come across a lot of information that I haven't, not from experience, but just from what I've read. There's a strong sense of community, and people know, like, they can go down the street and this person knows how to get them this resource. And so they've already kind of got this network of people who can provide resources and a bunch of DIY. And if you don't know how to do it, there's someone who knows and will help you. So there's a stronger sense of connection in the Upper Peninsula, I think, due to this, which to me suggests not as much of an independence, but an interdependence.
Do you think that they're welcoming of outsiders there or no?
Not at first, but once you once you live there, yeah, I haven't been there, but from everything I've come across, if you move there, you are now a Uber and they will take you in. But if you're just visiting, they might not be as. Michigan in general, they seem to be really friendly up here. Kind of like from
In the UP, there is like an extra strong, are you a tourist situation, because it does have so much vacation travel. And the tourism and people who come in just to use the place for fun are a big transient population, like multiple times of volume of the resident population.
That sounds a lot like the Maine of the Midwest.
I don't pick up on
Pretty
it
good
as-
analogy.
Like in Colorado, I picked up on that anti-tourist, anti-new resident, but up here, not so much really. I feel like they're kind of ready for people to move. They want people here.
Although it's worth mentioning that we haven't been to the Upper Peninsula yet. That was part of our plan, but we ended up moving into this house later than we expected to. So a lot of our previous plans have been delayed. So you can ask us the same question in about 6 months and we'll be able to give you a first-hand experience answer
About the Upper.
about the UP.
I'll mute it.
So I'm really happy that we're all here to talk with each other. I had a couple of questions that I was hoping we could talk about. One of them is I'd love to hear more about what each of you hope to get out of a climate resilience community, a place where we can talk about these issues. because there aren't that many of them yet. And I see this as an important opportunity to hold space and make space for people to talk together about climate resilience. The other question is that I just got, I found out late on Friday, I got a $10,000 advertising grant. Google gives those out to nonprofits. And you know, we're growing, but like the word needs to get out. And I have no advertising background. So any thoughts that you all have about what sorts of keywords, ways that this information could be made appealing in an advertising way to a general audience? Right now, the community on YouTube, it's mostly really healthy. We don't have a lot of gross troll action or anything. I wonder how we can get more people who are interested in building stuff, in growing stuff, to be attracted to the ad campaign rather than just like a million people. You know what I mean? I hope this is clear. And I think that if we talk a little bit about what each of us want out of a climate resilience community, it might make us more about how to describe it so that I can use that grant money effectively. And I'll stop talking now. I want to hear what you all think.
So I've noticed in other channels that I follow on other topics is they're cross marketing with each other. So if there's like, you know, 3 really good YouTube channels on topic X, all of a sudden you'll find that they're sponsoring and showing products from a less popular YouTube site and promoting them. And so they're networking with each other and they promote each other. And that seems to me, I mean, aside from, you know, trying to, I think there's ways you can buy with YouTube. You can promote yourself through, you know, paying them or something. I'm not aware of it, but I've heard that. But it's that cross marketing that seems to be working for some folks really well.
So real estate agents and a climatologist? Is that what
that's-
you're thinking?
Well, actually, yeah, because we've been looking at a lot of YouTubers that are realtors, and a few of them are bringing in information about climate change and bringing and pointing to other YouTube channels. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's interesting. It would be a good way to grow the community. I haven't spent any money on advertising before. And in fact, we've recently been doing these events on the ground, like Kyle and I are going to do next Saturday. And we set up a Facebook page because that's a good way to promote physical events. And you are not allowed to do paid advertising on climate through that platform unless you upload your government identification and pay money. I've been testing the filter. It's anything about climate because they don't want to pay to verify if what someone is saying is accurate or not. So they just have a blanket ban over it as an attempt to prevent misinformation by making it impossible to talk about it.
So a quick comment on advertising Google. My previous job, I worked for a nonprofit in Texas, and we got a Google grant to run advertising. So, and at the time, I had never done any Google AdWords campaigns or anything like that. So the situation you described is something that I exactly had the same experience of, right? And right now I'm trying to remember, I'm dusting off old memories. So my statement is that I have nothing to say right now, but probably after this meeting is done, I'll be able to kind of go back through my old notes. And so I may be able to give you good input. The only thing that I'm remembering right now is that $10,000 in Google AdWords money or Google ad money is going to disappear faster than you expect to. So being really prudent about it right now and making the right choices about what words you're going to buy is going to make a big impact, right? The only other thing I'm remembering right now is that it really felt like a decision between, do I buy the big things that are going to then eat my money in 2.5 weeks, or am I going to buy the smaller ones that, you know, kind of have a long trickle effect? And right now, I think we went for the smaller words, in part because that particular website, and it was a website that it's primarily focused on, that website already had very strong search engine pull because it had been around for a long time already. So I guess the very last thing I'll say is that another part of it that probably needs to go hand in hand with it is really building a website that has long-standing endurance that ranks well in engines because it's properly cross-linked and all that. And that's a hard thing to build organically, right? It's something that just takes time. I'm going to be quiet now, but I'll add more after the meeting.
I appreciate you dusting off your files about it. I very much have the same like delayed sorting process in my brain where it's like, I'm gonna remember that fact in about 8.5 hours. You just give me a while. It would be really great to be able to connect after this meeting to learn from your experience. And you can tell I'm not far along in my process here because I should look with how people are finding the website. We're getting way over 1,000 visitors to the website every month. I had to upgrade it to like professional service tier a couple of months ago. You know, we're at a point where we built a certain amount of critical mass where it's still small. And I still hear from many people who climate resilience, the fact that we need to start getting ready for the changes that are coming now and that we know about what they will be. I hear from many people who they aren't getting that information anywhere else yet. I've started to hear the term climate resilience more often on NPR. I think that it's mentioned often in the IPCC report, which I'm going to record a summary of the long form AR6 this week. I've just finished digesting it. So we'll all get more information on the global outlook this week. But climate resilience is going to be a big topic in the 5th National Climate Assessment, now scheduled to come out in November of this year. I find it ominous that they pushed it back so far. But it's going to be a term that people will hear more, and that will help people to see that this is not a fringe thing. This is consensus science that has not been well presented to the public yet. Do you think we want? Each of us as people, what do we want out of a space to talk about resilience issues? What kind of things do we want to be able to explore? What brought you here today?
I made a little list so I can just read off of my list. But before I do that, I just want to speak to your advertising. I think that your message of hope and resilience is a powerful one. And so like, that's just to say that what you've already been doing is awesome. So yeah.
I agree. My choice of where I bought my house that I just bought, like I was using knowledge and information that I got from your channel. I would have never thought to look here on my own.
Where'd you go?
I'm in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's like Eastern PA, about 60 miles north of Philly, like just starting to get into like the mountainy part of the state.
My husband was born.
Cakey outlook. That's nice. That's a nice place to be.
My husband was
Gail,
born.
after Desiree has a chance to speak, I'll make sure that we get to you, okay? I see your hand up.
So my list from what I want from a community is like information, sharing resources, education, on like just all kinds of things, networking. So all of these really include lots of other things. Regional variety, mutual aid. So like a network of people that are in different regions that can help. So like if our area gets flooded out, we have connections in other areas or that aren't too far, or to help transfer supplies back and forth, things like that. So mutual aid across other regions, not just locally, and support and encouragement for the things that we're trying to do. I mean, we're making big changes. We left our community behind. We're starting over. And so for climate migrants, but I guess for anyone dealing with climate catastrophes, support and encouragement as well.
I think that having a so I have thoughts for how to provide more like education type community building. I think that there are questions defining regions. You know, you talked about regional variety. We're defining regions, the challenges of the regions, and identifying things to work together in a regional way is something that I'm really feeling drawn to as I think about powerful ways to share the information. I value all these ideas. This is very cool. Gail, can we give you an opportunity to share, please?
If I can find where my fingers are supposed to go. Desiree, those were very good ideas. Especially like the reaching into other regions. But the image I wanted to offer for the conversation here is what happens when you drop a stone in a still pond? You have the ripples. And so resilience begins in the core of self and knowing self. We really have to know ourselves really well. And I'm an elder, so I'm kind of in that conversation with others, but then we each have the next ripple out is family. It's not that all of us are close to family. My family's scattered all over the West. But then is the next ripple out is adopted family. Who have we pulled in as our beloveds where we are? And that's really important to have this conversation. And it's psychological, it's interpersonal, it's how can we help each other? And then comes the community, which when I look around, I moved here in 2020 in this little burg in northern Idaho, just a little town, 2,000 people. And I've lost, Emily, this hurts me to even say this. I've lost 50 trees have been cut down since I moved in. It's only been 3 years. 50 great big friends of mine. And about 30 new people. So when I moved in, I knew everybody because I made a point of it. And then it kind of became a crush or a rush. There's wow, in 3 months, 2 duplexes went up right across the orchard. So I have an orchard that's 100-year-old trees, but which I've made part of my resiliency practice. If they can make 100 years, I can make 100 years kind of idea. But I think that the resiliency has to be eco-psychological, eco-psych. It has to be interpersonal. It has to be all these ripples going around. So maybe we can make a conversation out of what resiliency means exactly before we get to the mountains that are making the climate and the wind that brings the rain. And before we get there, before we get to climate resiliency, we have to have a firm understanding of what resiliency is. Those are my comments. I hope it's helpful, Emily.
I do like that image of the ripple effect. In the 18 months I've been trying to work on this project, the people who hear about it and the way that they hear about it, it does move out through people's networks. And knowing that the information is going out hand to hand really matters. I think getting the information out there, being able to translate the scientific documents is one of the core skills that we're being able to give here, because that's an unusual skill. But people don't want just information alone. It has to have a context. It has to have a core. And I think that what Gail's saying about, what is resiliency is important. To me, it echoes a lot with this idea of knowing yourself that you brought up. When we talk about resilience, we're talking about bouncing back, right? From different pressures, from different traumas. It means you have to have a solid core to be resilient. You have to have a form that you keep bouncing back to. And all of us have changes that we'll have to make. There's no region where there aren't things we'll have to give up as we grow into a different future. I think there are things that we can gain as well, but there are also things that to live in a healthier earth, a more resilient, sustainable community, there are things we'll have to leave behind. I don't think that we're all going to have next day shipping forever, right? And so what are those things that we need to hold on to be resilient and be able to stay the same in the way that matters? I think a lot about that question. I don't know about anyone else.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
When I see reservoirs and snowpack, like lots of reservoirs, lots of water and snowpack, that feels sexy to me now. You know, like they may have a decade's worth of water there. That could be good. You know, you have to be resilient with the losses, but also there are some things that are so important. I figured we probably will all become dirtier in the end. But so when I see those things, they are life affirming to me.
That's interesting because
Snowpack.
go ahead.
Oh, just as a connector to what Gail is saying with the tree death up in northern Idaho,
Mhm.
one of the places that's very important to me is outside of Yosemite in Northern California. I have a family member I'm very close with who lives in the mountains there, and I've seen the landscape transition there with my own eyes. You know, it turned from a deep mountain forest, a lot of biomass, a lot of moisture held in the soil and in the plants, to like an oak chaparral now. And with the big snow that came with all those atmospheric rivers to California, she sent me the brush pile from all of the dead trees, the remaining trees, the last of them, the oaks on the property. And it took me a while to understand what the picture was because it was so much more tree death. It was like a wall of it. It is important to be able to witness these changing landscapes as we look at the transition from forest to grassland in so much of the US. It could be 20% of the US. The forests are going to transition to grasslands in the next 20 years. And thinking about how we can use that change in a positive way, because grasslands can capture carbon faster than forests. If there's mourning from the
Grassland-
loss of our friends, you know, the trees, I feel you, Gail, they feel like friends, the trees that you live with. But it's one of the losses we have to look at and see how we can make the change be something positive. Sarah, you looked like you wanted to chime in there too.
Yeah, I was gonna say grasslands, when they're properly managed and maintained, they actually are much better for stormwater runoff than forests are. They have deeper root systems.
Pull in droughts too. A lot of what I've been doing on my property after looking at the climate outlook is putting in deep-rooted native plants that can tolerate it a little bit hotter instead of the trees I originally thought I was going to put in. I ended up focusing on the subsoil water infrastructure and life infrastructure instead. But I'm sorry, Lori, I kind of went on a meandering there.
You're muted.
There you go.
Never mind.
She said she was complete.
I can briefly talk about Boston. I'm sorry. Briefly touch on what you were saying, having moved from Texas up here to Michigan. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and my ex-wife actually is from Bethlehem, so I'm very familiar with the area you're talking about. My grandmom lives in Scranton. My mom lives in a suburb of Philly, so I really know Eastern PA real well. But I moved from PA to Texas, and that was in 2000 or just before. And in PA, you're used to great big trees and water being out in the open. It's around. You've got rivers, you've got lakes. And then moving to Texas, Central Texas, I felt a little bit of pressure, like always at the back of my head. It's like water is scarcer here. Water is scarcer here, right? And recently, right, with Lake Austin and I forget the one that the Oasis.
Travis Lake.
Thank you, Travis Lake, right? You see that going down, 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 down. And coming back up here, water is everywhere again, right? I mean, there are lakes. There are literally 7 lakes within 10 minutes of my house, right? And the bounty of water almost feels obscene, but I can breathe again, right? Our house is on well water, right? And at least from current projections, it's going to be fine for a very long time. Every time it rains or snows, I'm like, oh, Lake Michigan's coming over here to say it loves us, right? And it's kind of awesome to not live with that pressure anymore. I'm not saying, therefore, you should come to Michigan just like we did, but gosh darn it, it's nice being near some of the largest freshwater bodies on the planet. It's a real stress relief.
Thanks.
When I think about the destination regions, which are not like the only good places in the country to go, but they're your core strongholds, no matter the climate outlook. Those 3 destination regions, if we manage to make the turn that I think we're going to and come in around 2 degrees of warming, it does look good, actually. I have a probability table that I pulled out of the AR6. I know everyone is going to be as excited as I am about reading a probability table. I'm sorry. But
I am.
the odds are looking pretty good. They're looking better than we might have thought if there's more cuts made before 2030. And I think that we're on the road to do that with the current price per unit of solar power. It's looking pretty good. But even if we don't hit 2, even if we get into 2.5, 2.6, the destination regions have solid water outlooks, with the exception of inland Pacific Northwest, where it's a little bit flakier. But I think with what you were talking about, Desiree, with interregional connections, we need all of the destination regions we can get, right? And they have such a good baseline outlook, and it's so beautiful there, and they have such wonderful agricultural diversity there that is lacking in the other 2 destination regions, that I think building up that spirit of interconnectedness and interrelatedness is very important to maximize our success in the future. I love being in an area with surface water. I flew into Eastern Iowa from ASU. I did my graduate work in Tempe, Arizona, and I flew in and I could see all the surface water, and it really made me tear up. I thought it was so beautiful, like so much richness. And lately, as I've gotten more and more serious about looking at 20, 30, 40-year outlooks, I've gotten a lot more interested in groundwater. And that's what we're working to teach about in Eastern Iowa. And I think that there's a need for us across the country to get a better understanding of groundwater. There are quite a few places where we have not yet done the abuse of the groundwater that we've seen in Texas, where they're desalinating the saline groundwater because they pulled out all the fresh groundwater, or in the south of the Ogallala, where they went way past sustainable draw. In Iowa, Illinois, and much of Wisconsin, we're very close to sustainable draw on the groundwater, but we're likely to need it more in the future. I think this is a case where we can start to talk about something that could be a big problem before we catch it. And I feel like people want to hear about a problem before they catch it for a change, right? When you have a chance to actually stop the problem from being very serious. And so we try to think further out from the Great Lakes, which obviously are like the core water resilience point for both the Northeast and the Northern Midwest. That groundwater contributes to water systems that go far out. If you want to talk about the ripple effect, right? So preserving and understanding water as a above and below the surface thing, I think that's something that needs to be highlighted as we continue to educate about climate resilience.
And I think that touches back on one of your original 2 questions, which is what are people looking for from a climate resilience community, right? And I really like Desiree's list. It covers everything that I wanted to say, but I want to share mine too because I'm me, I guess. I'm looking for answers, right? Like you were talking about probability tables. You're making a joke about. I'm sure everybody wants to look at that. We do, right? People want answers because they want actionable things, right? They want answers. They want actions they can take because, and I'm going to overstate what we're doing right now a little bit, but we're all being a little bit brave because looking at climate resilience, looking at climate change, it's so big. It's so big. And we're just little tiny people on a great big planet. And it becomes hard to know what to do, right? And you know, for us, getting up and moving to Michigan, it was a huge change. We had a comfortable life in a nice house, and it's scary, right? To confront such a large thing. Anyway, sorry. Answers, actions, recipes. I think an average person, they want to be told what to do, right? They want to say, I can follow these steps and then I'll be okay. We also recognize that that's not something that's really possible in this situation. You can give suggestions, right? And that's, I think, part of a position that is hard for you as organizing and running and being the motivator and face for this, is that you know, you can't necessarily tell people do these specific things because it changes for every single person, right? So answers, actions, recipes, and sharing what we're doing right now, knowing that you're not alone, and starting to build that community. That's part of what's happening right here, is that we are building or have built the very beginnings of a little interconnected nexus web of people with shared interests in addressing and resolving this. So anyway, the 4 things I'm looking for at least are answers, actions, recipes, and sharing.
I like that. And, you know, thinking about the folks who are on the call right now, it's cool that we do have representatives from all 3 of the best general regions. We got the Northern Midwest, got Inland Pacific Northwest, and we've got Northeast on the call. It's fortunate. And I don't mean to be excluding of people who know that they're in areas where probably you want to move for the best outlook in 10 years. You know, I think that there are a lot of folks who follow the channel who are in Southern California who are looking for places to go. There are a lot of Hispanic folks who follow the channel who are in Southern California and Arizona and are looking for places to go where they're not going to be coming into like a totally racist location, where they're going to be able to find a place to go that's, you know, safe and welcoming. Oh, Sarah, what you got to say?
So my area, the Lehigh Valley that I just moved to, is heavily Hispanic. So that would be a great place for people to look into.
That's some good on the ground intel.
I'm actually like one of the only white people in the neighborhood that I moved into. It's all people from different island countries.
I wouldn't say that
It's really interesting.
Heavily Hispanic, but we do also have a pretty good. I've run into quite a few other Mexican Americans, and I know that Detroit also has a lot of Mexican Americans because of just migration patterns throughout history, and so does Northern Illinois.
A lot of
Well,
the, not just Lehigh Valley, but other like small cities in Eastern PA, like Reading, Lancaster, I think maybe Scranton as well. Like it's a very Hispanic friendly, as long as they stay in like the more urban parts. I don't even, as a Jewish person, like to go into the like less urbanized parts of Pennsylvania.
as a Jewish person, it's worth being like aware of these things. You know, the amount of anti-Semitic activity in Eastern Iowa in the last 2 years has been very weird. There's been a striking uptick in it. We've got another person who's joined us, Michael. I don't think that we've had a chance to welcome you. We can't see you, but we could hear you maybe. All right, I'm gonna assume you're just listening in, but anytime you want to introduce yourself, we're happy to hear from you. But yeah, finding a way to assess the welcoming and like share information about the culture of places is something that I'm still struggling with and trying to find resources that help to do that in an equitable way. Because I think that we're still at a place where we want more than water to drink, right? Like we're not trying to move our future life to like one notch below Mad Max Thunderdome. We want to be able to continue to have like a humane life, a life that has richness and cultural values.
So that's been a big one for us because, and I've got a side question maybe for later about how kind of the Sky Islands concept hasn't been emphasized in your videos recently. The other three locations have been, but we'll set that aside for a second. But we've been looking at Utah Valley versus the Front Range of Colorado because we have family in both of those places. And what has shocked us as we've been doing the research is the difference in the governments of each of those states' view on climate change. Utah is still in quite a bit of denial, especially at the governor's level, while Colorado's very active governor and local governments as well, taking on the challenge and starting to do things about it. And that's going to be it would have been, I guess it was just shocking to me how different they are, which is probably going to eliminate Utah for us. We're not positive yet, but it's looking that way.
I tell you, Utah to me is the greatest tragedy unfolding in the US right now because the Wasatch Valley has such an inherently great climate outlook if they were not going to drain the lake. And it appears that they are going to move forward with that. Kyle, you unmuted. What do you have to add to that
so
one?
I'm originally from the valley in Utah, the Salt Lake Valley. All my family's still there. And that's the direction it will continue to go. It is sad, but it will become uninhabitable until the last dollar profit is taken out of that valley. And that's just the way it is. It's unfortunate, but it's something that I've seen my entire life. And it doesn't appear to be changing anytime in the near future.
It's so sad. I think that those responses in those vulnerable areas around the Sky Islands are absolutely key. And that is, man, there are so many people who could live sustainably in the Wasatch Valley if we were willing to have a response that would keep that lake from drying up. The dust that's going to come out of that lake bed is it's just unbelievable. New Mexico, though, we see a lot of climate response in New Mexico, and there are very stable high altitude regions there. To speak broadly to why I haven't been talking much about the Sky Islands, it's not because the outlooks are bad. They're good. They're very stable. It's because those are not high capacity regions. And if a person is exploring this and they're only going to hear one or two places that they should go, I don't want them to hear move to Denver. I want them to hear move to central Wisconsin, where there's more housing stock, more water, higher capacity. I feel like when we're trying to get new ideas out there, new messages out there, I could be wrong, but I feel like morally it's better to have the higher capacity areas be more front and center in the messaging because you're not going to hurt those places as much by sending people there. Many of them have supported more people in the past than they do now, higher population densities in the past than they have now.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, we've been looking north of Denver mostly because there are still small communities out there when you head towards Fort Collins. One of our concerns is SADS, frankly, seasonal affectiveness disorder. The further north you go, the less light you get, throughout the year. The Pacific Northwest, a lot of overcast, that hits your SADS as well. So that's the balance that we're trying to make when we're looking at Colorado.
And I have had that feeling that there are a lot of climate change people who have already gone there from Austin. And it does have a limited capacity. I can just feel that all those small communities are going to be suburbs of Denver or at the edge of Denver at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
A lot of Texans have moved there.
so I understand that.
Just,
Send the people where they could best go.
the realtor told me that they don't like Texans in Colorado, so don't advertise to everyone until you start to make your first impression. Don't lead with Texas.
Also, so you were looking at
You have a directional mic or something.
Yeah, probably right here.
we
There
were
you go.
looking at Colorado very seriously.
Mhm.
And one of the things that pushed us away from it, all right, two things. One is that the safe livable region in Colorado is tricky because you've got plains that catch on fire and get really dry plains that get really dry to the east, and then you've got mountainous forest that catches on fire to the west. So you've got that little margin right down the middle, right? But the other part of it, though, is that Colorado, because it has the Rockies, it is the perpetual water generator for the region. Every other state adjacent to it has very strong legal rights to Colorado's water. And some of those neighbors are behaving in very bad ways. I can't remember which neighboring state, like literally built canals in Colorado to take the water into their state.
Yeah.
Nebraska was being bad, and like Nebraska is just being nasty to everybody next to it to try and take their water. The point though is that Colorado has some if I'm being facetious just a little bit, Colorado is where the water wars are going to first happen. You're going to see like National Guards for different states fighting each other over water there. And again, I'm being facetious, but still there's a real problem there.
There's a real problem going to unfold this year. We're closer every day to when the feds have to announce that water plan. I don't know how many of you folks are following that with the cuts to the Colorado River Basin that are happening this year. Yes. Oh, it's big. They laid out a couple of scenarios. The states have been unable to agree, so the feds have laid out two different plans. One where the cuts are primarily to the cities, and the other where the cuts prioritize folks who have highest priority water rights. So water rights held in treaty, water rights related to Spanish land grants, that sort of thing. In this high cut scenario for cities, they're talking about Las Vegas losing 90% of their water supply this fall. Like, these are big cuts. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how the federal response begins to shape this up. And I agree with what you said there. Colorado is going to be the heart of it because Colorado is the headwaters. And because Colorado, if they were keeping more water in the state, would have a tremendous broadening of that livable island, of that spine of survivability. It's a very challenging problem, and one of the many reasons why I feel like getting into the multiple Great Lakes watersheds, where the water is protected in very legally complicated ways to keep the water in the region, which is both good and bad, honestly, because with the precipitation outlook, there's going to be plenty of water in the Great Lakes region for a while. But I think that that is just like the core of life, right? Is water. And when we look at our climate migrant populations, we've got a lot of folks in the Southwest and Texas who might want to look at moving. Southern Texas, the increase in heat is pretty intense. I think that we haven't really hit on the Gulf. We don't have any Gulf representatives here, but there's portions of the Gulf that are also going to be pretty serious from a migration perspective. And I don't think that we're doing enough to reach folks on the channel in those vulnerable populations. We get some people from Louisiana who are very interested, but not everyone who should be getting the message is getting the message, if that makes sense. Oh, you have family down there. Cool. What part?
South Texas. I've got family in Corpus and family in Brownsville. Where I'm from, where I was born.
Nice. It's
So
interesting to think maybe there'd be a way to start getting in touch with people as we can ripple outward, you know?
So one thing about the ripple that when Gail was talking, kind of
Here, turn your mic. Turn your mic.
oh, one thing that came up when Gail was talking about the ripple effect was when those of you who haven't already moved and who are going to move, tell your friends why. Like we were honest, we told our friends the reason, and we had going away parties and invited them over and told them why. And one of my friends asked me for resources. I sent her your channel, a link to your channel. And before we even got out of our house, she was already in Illinois in Champaign-Urbana because she had people there. So then there are already people talking about it and thinking about it just from coming to our going away party and hearing about our decisions. So I think climate migrant going away parties should become a thing.
It's kind of sad and beautiful at the same time. I would really love to hear more about that experience. And you said that you have like footage related to that. If you ever wanted to collaborate on putting something like that out on, and share it across the AR channel, I think a lot of people would be interested. And I think that it's an important time to start getting real serious. I've seen a number of reputable agencies say that this could be the first 1.5 summer because it's anticipated to be a warm summer. The oceans are very warm right now, and that it'll be abnormal. But I think that there's a chance, an unfortunate chance, that this will be a year that shakes things up. And for regular folks who can afford normal property, we're going to continue to see this weird rise in property values in destination regions. My place, which is out in rural Iowa, has had a 20% property tax increase in the last year, and the value of the place has more than doubled since I bought it in 2020 because there is such a beginning movement of people who are trying to make these decisions based on climate. And I feel like this is stuff that's covered frequently in publications that cater to the very wealthy. You know, they're getting access to this information sooner, but it really is a justice issue. These studies are paid for by the American taxpayer, and the American taxpayer needs access to this information. It's important that we do what we can to get people access to this information that their dollars have already paid for. But, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I need to go and cover some of my plants. I'm scared for them. I just moved all my cactuses outside. I hope it's not too late for them, but they're very tough. I'm telling that to myself in my heart. So, thanks for chatting in, Michael. I will put this up on the channel. I think there's some helpful, meaningful stuff that we've talked about here. And I look forward to talking with you all in the future. It's been great to connect with you. And it feels really good to feel like we are growing a community here. There's a lot of folks who need access to this information, and we're doing a lot to start putting it together and getting it out there. And I'm glad I'm doing it with y'all.
Oh, Emily, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm one of your cheerleaders, and I'll keep spreading the word. Word of mouth is very powerful.
I appreciate it. It's the best way to be able to tell a person that you care about that this is something that they can trust. And I always try to be really transparent with the sources so you know that it's something you can trust. You know that they're from highly vetted, high consensus sources. All right. Well, let's do this again. Let's do this again next month. I'll look forward to talking with everyone, and we'll have some new discussion questions next month. And take care, everyone.
Good luck with the grant money. Good luck.